Welcome back to my series on DevOps and testing. And in this video, we are talking about smoke testing. Now, I think this is the one that when I talk with software developers, they know the least about. So I'm excited if you're here and learning about this for the first time. So a smoke test, sometimes referred to as a build verification test. And really the goal or the purpose here is to make sure the system is basically working right after a new build or deployment. So if you're a developer, you push up to the pipeline, it goes through all of the tests, everything has passed, it goes into deployment, and now it's in production. How do you know if it's working, right? Like, did the app light up? Did anything catch fire, right? The smoke testing is really where that term comes from. So if it's broken at this level, there's no point moving forward with deeper tests. We know that there's like some kind of big problem. If it got through all of the tests in the pipeline and everything checked out, but then something bad happened, we know that there's something like really wrong that we need to dig into right away. So these are quick, low effort, and then they're the first check after the deployment of a new build. So some tools. As always, we're talking about the tools. There's lots of tools that we can use to run smoke tests. Some are going to work in various environments, and some are going to be a little more specialized for your stack. So things like shell scripts, so using curl or invoke web request, are quick and portable and are going to give you right away, like, hey, the site's up, the API's up, something isn't working. Postman is also great for API checks, and you can automate your Postman calls using Newman in your CI pipeline. And then things like Supertest, which are great for like Node.js APIs, and any language with an HTTP client. So like if you're using .NET's HTTP client, Supertest is great for testing endpoints. If you're doing UI level smoke tests, then we've talked about Cypress, Playwright. Those can validate that the homepage loads and that login works and that, something hasn't been broken for all of our end users. So some common things, right? A few things that we check for that smoke tests are kind of key to help us determine if there's a problem. Can I hit the homepage? Can I log in? Is the API reachable? Right? Does the database connection work? Right? These aren't deep or detailed tests. They're quick checks to make sure the basics haven't just gone completely offline. So smoke testing, right? Why do we do it? What is it for? So we always think of it this way: fast, basic checks that verify the application is up, it doesn't crash on launch, and it's kind of inspired by hardware testing, right? If a new circuit board starts smoking when you powered it on, I know a lot of people call that the magic smoke. If you let the magic smoke out, stop everything. Something bad has happened. And that's the same idea here. If the app fails these tests, we stop the pipeline, we fix the build before we waste any time on deeper testing. So our purpose is kind of threefold. I know you're looking at 4 boxes here, but it's kind of threefold. We want to verify basic stability after a build or deployment. So is everything running? Is it accessible? Can I get to it? We want to catch those showstopper bugs quickly. So I accidentally typoed an endpoint, or I accidentally left the login system connected to the test database and I pushed that into deployment and now I can't access the production database, right? Showstopper bugs. We want to avoid wasting time running more complex tests on a broken system where something is like just clearly not right. And then, that's the purpose. When do we run them? Well, we typically run them right after deployment, but before our functional integration or regression tests begin. And so that can really help us, again, catch things before we run those more complex, time-intensive tests. So what do we include? Here's a few key things that we should think about when we are putting together a smoke test. So setting up a health endpoint to verify the service is live so that you have a quick server health API endpoint you can hit for your smoke test that if everything is good, just returns a 200. Homepage availability. Does the web interface load without errors? Everything is good. Login functionality. Can users log in and land on the dashboard, or they're taken to wherever they're supposed to be taken? Database connection. Can the app read and write to your production database? And then checking your critical routes. Just like with our with our functional testing, we wanted to only focus on the critical functionality, right? The big pieces that are going to trip up almost everybody. So essential endpoints like login, dashboard, API status, right? Check those, make sure that you're getting the right responses and that they're accessible and there's no problems. So here's an example on how we could write a smoke test. This is a C# example. And so using NUnit, this checks that the health endpoint is up and responding with an HTTP 200 OK status. And this is a great example of just a lightweight, reliable test that validates app health. So when we talk about these types of testing, I like to show you these examples, even if maybe you're not familiar with the language, so that you can see what I'm talking about in terms of like, how big is this test? What does this look like? We are going to get to like building some pipelines and putting some tests together. So you'll get a little more hands-on if you stick around with me. But I just want you to kind of really have an idea of what I'm talking about when it comes to the code for these types of tests. So where do they fit in DevOps? So in our CI/CD pipeline, after the build step, which is where unit tests run, when the code is deployed to staging, you can run your smoke tests immediately. So that's where you're going to find out if something critical is broken. If they pass, you can continue then to your functional or integration tests. But if they fail, at that point you can abort the pipeline and there's no point in going further until those basics are fixed, because the rest of your tests are probably going to fail anyway if it's something critical. So some tips, best practices before we wrap up. We want to keep them short and focused. Smoke tests, right, because they're just testing for very basic functionality and health checks, should run in under, this says 1 to 2 minutes, but honestly, that would be kind of a long smoke test. These should run pretty fast. We do want to automate them into our pipeline and not rely on manual checks. And this will help keep everyone in check as they're deploying into the pipeline, that everyone is running their smoke testing and not skipping. You'd be surprised how many developers will skip testing, and I'm going to say this a lot. If they're given the ability to skip testing, they will, because it's time consuming and it's slowing down their process from their point of view. So, I mean, experienced developers, they understand, but if you give a junior developer the ability to skip a test and they're running it manually, they're never running it, I promise. So use endpoints that are going to help you with your checks. So setting up like a health, a ready, a version to get those quick diagnostics so you can write those quick tests that are just going to run and tell you if things are great. We want to run smoke tests in every environment. So development, staging, and production. This is going to show you, hey, development can't access what it needs to, or staging can't access what it needs to, but production is fine. We need all of our systems working in order for all of our tests to run. So if there's something broke in one environment, we stop and fix it, even if it's not production, because that's key to the rest of our testing plan working. And then again, automate everything, because consistency is key. So I hope you've learned a lot about smoke testing. Again, as a software developer coming into this, maybe this is the one you didn't know as much about. That's what I hear from my software development students. If you're coming from a QA or a DevOps background, you're probably like, yeah, duh, I've written plenty of smoke tests. But the smoke testing gives you that quick reality check after deployment. It ensures your system is alive and stable and worth testing further. They should be fast, they should be automated, and it's one of the simplest ways to avoid shipping broken software. So thanks so much for listening. I'm always happy to take questions in the comments. We're going to continue our lessons with more different types of testing as we continue our testing and DevOps journey. And I hope to catch you in another video. Thanks so much.